A very warm welcome to this World Game Changers podcast, where your host, Paul D. Lowe, embraces many crucial conversations that compassionately contribute towards creating a better life and world. Paul's intention's very simple: to help get people's inspirational insights and motivational messages out into the world, so others may benefit.
Hello listeners, and welcome to this World Game Changers podcast episode, where today I am joined by a new guest, a gentleman from my native UK, David Roberts. David, a very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. Great pleasure to be here.
And David and I thought we'd talk about listeners in a very short sort of, 15 minutes-esque punchy version of what makes a great leader. So David, let's dive straight in. What does make a great leader?
Well, I think the first thing is that if you need to lead people, then you need to first think about how you're leading yourself. So leadership really, as with many things in life, it starts with yourself, and being a leader. There's the whole saying, isn't there, that leaders eat last, and there's a reason why leaders eat last, and that's because they look after themselves first. So getting that balance right from the point of view of in a way being a little bit selfish, so that you can actually be selfless and lead others well, is kind of where it all starts for me.
Interesting analogy. I've never heard that before. One I have heard, listeners, consistently is the oxygen mask on the plane. But What you've said there, David, is almost the kind of exact opposite, isn't it? So what you're saying there is, don't put your oxygen mask on first, put somebody else's on, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Well, I suppose what I'm saying is personal leadership is an ongoing thing. So in action in crisis, that's where you need to put your oxygen mask on first to help other people, because you're in that kind of crisis situation. But being a leader is about how you show up day in, day out, and it's about that consistency, that understanding of yourself, kind of where you're going, and where you're looking to take the people that you are leading. And knowing when it's right for you to lead in a certain scenario, i.e. put the oxygen mask on first, or where it's right for you to actually step back a little bit, and the people that you've got on your team, let them step forward and lead, because a key part of leadership is about recognizing the strengths of others and where others can actually make that leadership contribution, empowering them to do that, creating the environment where they can do that. And so then it's about knowing when to step back. And actually, when you're a leader, and especially when you're starting out leading others, you get this sort of feeling that actually, because you're responsible, you want to be responsible, you have to kind of take control, and you have to get in there hands on and do it. But actually leading by example, sometimes it requires for you to step back and give other people the space to be able to take on that leadership role. So action in crisis is a core leadership competency. And in that scenario, again, the first thing to do is to make sure you got the air to breathe, so you can lead other people through that crisis. But when you're talking about leadership in general terms, I think being able to step back and create that space for others to really thrive is a key attribute. And you can only really do that if you've invested that time in yourself to give yourself the confidence to create that space for others to really do well.
What about vulnerability, David? What part does that play in being an effective leader? Because there's so much stuff out there, isn't it? We're conditioned, don't show weakness, win at all costs, lead from the front, and all this kind of, dare I say, macho rhetoric. Any thoughts around that, vulnerability?
Yeah, you absolutely have to be vulnerable. And in a way, if you're not being vulnerable, you're not being truly honest. People know when you're being truthful. People know that either their intuition or their gut feel will tell them that you're not necessarily being entirely honest. So being vulnerable is a key part of being honest, as far as I'm concerned.
which brings in for me, and I know as host, David, we're not supposed to use cliches or generalizations, but the listeners, as you'll know, I tend to break every rule in the book on these podcasts. So let me use a cliche, David. Fake it till you make it. And let me give that some context. So in the context of vulnerability, do you know what, David? I've just got out of bed and I feel absolutely rubbish today. I don't want to play today. I don't want to be part of this. I've had enough. I just feel under the weather, blah, 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 blah. Do you know what, Paul? Go out there with a smile on your face and lead from the front. And that brings in that almost fake it till you make it. Any thoughts around that one, David?
Yeah. I think there's a big difference between fake it versus knowing that you're stretching your comfort zone. And you may get out of bed one morning and not feel as though you're in the right state of mind. Having somebody to talk to about that can be helpful, and sharing that. Being honest when you go into a meeting, for example, and saying, look, we need to be very focused and driven today. We need to be very on topic, but I'm actually not feeling very energized. Let's all get up. Let's all energize ourselves. Let's do it together and get ourselves all into the right kind of state. So I think faking it is a mistake, but knowing where you want to get to. So and again, that self-awareness, so you know where your strengths and weaknesses are, and being able to be honest about that with yourself can actually help you to get into a position where actually you're not faking it. You're stretching your comfort zone, so you're getting yourself into state, not into a state. So you're getting yourself into the right state to be able to do what you need to do. And then if you feel you need a little bit more energy, and extroverts draw their energy from other people, as we know, then sharing it with people and trying to create an environment where you get everybody into that same energized state to be able to confront and the task ahead, and all with the same energy and tackle it head on. I think that can be a very good way of getting around that scenario. And also, a successful day, really, the success of a day happens the day before, in my view. So if you have gone to bed in the wrong state, then you're going to be more likely to get up in the wrong state. And if you haven't thought about what's going to be happening the following day, the night before or whatever, then you're going to be caught out. So part of that preparation actually happens before you go to bed the night before.
Interesting. And I can see from I'm going to be a bit sort of controversial here. I can see from a masculine perspective, an energetic masculine perspective, David, how that plays out. And I've spent most of my life in that space, so absolutely agree. But I'm going to flip that over and say from a more let it be, let it unfold, be in the moment, etc., kind of kicks against that, doesn't it?
Well, so gender's an interesting one. There's one of the I think it's 7 universal laws is a law of gender, and another universal law is a law of polarity. So where you've got those sort of two extremes, and where you are is you've got feminine energy and you've got masculine energy, and we all have some of that energy in us, no matter what gender we are or no matter who we identify as. So being again aware of those different energies, and how you can harness those energies as a force for good, but also be aware of the energy levels of other people, I think is again something that you practice as a leader, but also as a human being. I'm very, very keen to make sure that there's a good range of personality types in any team that I'm part of. And I really seek to understand those personality types, those natural preferences. Some of them go on that kind of gender continuum. Some of them go along that introvert, extrovert type continuum. Some of them go along the thinkers or the feelers, the head versus the heart type continuum. And having a blend of all of those energies and personality types in a team, and being aware of the blend that you've actually got, can really help you to really sort of draw on the right kind of energies at the right kind of time. Because if you've got a problem to solve, and life is all about solving problems, and you've got a problem to solve that requires you to dial up a little bit more of that kind of feminine energy, then being aware of that and being able to pull on those resources, it can be very, very powerful.
Is it being too simplistic, David, to suggest that, and I've got my own answer on this, but I just put it out there, that leadership comes from the heart? Everything, all the answers are found in the heart. Now that can be quite a contentious statement, yet again, to the more masculine energies, where particularly, I come from an engineering, a very male-dominated engineering background, where problems are solved. Everything, 1 and 1 will equal 2, 2 and 2 will equal 4, etc., etc., etc. And I've found it on my journey of self-inquiry. I love the word when you introduce those words, self-awareness. Self-inquiry is, for me, part of that family, David. But that then going on that journey of creativity, of self-inquiry, to think, it's not a phrase I particularly resonate with, but think outside the box, do something different, that creativity, that childlike curiosity. It's okay for us as leaders to be childlike, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And some of us, self included, can't really help but do that because of the way that I am. But yeah, I think you're right. For me, if you draw the comparison between leadership and management, and what is the difference between those two things. So leadership is about people, which means that you're looking at how you motivate others, how you get alignment, how you create a vision that then other people can follow. Yeah, that action in crisis that you need at times when you're in those situations. All of those elements of leadership are all about people and how you can bring people along with you. That does draw you more towards the heart, towards the sort of that heart center, if you like. And if you look at management, that's much more about the task. That's much more about the activity, about getting things done. So that, and again, that then probably takes you more towards the thinking side of it, the counting it, the doing it. Again, it's all about elements of degree, but if you I don't think you can be a heartless leader. In answer to your question, you have to have a heart and be able to feel the right way of doing things. The other thing about, the other reason, I suppose, why leadership does come from the heart is because people know if you care. So intuitively, again, people know if you're, although they'll make their own mind up if they don't think you're being honest. They also will make their own mind up if they don't think that you care. And when you're in a situation and somebody's talking to you, and the sort of the words that they're using and the whole kind of drive of the conversation feels like it's more about them or something else than it is about you. Well, there are those signs that people pick up on, probably subconsciously. As a leader, you have to care, which means it has to come from the heart. Because if you don't care, other people will know it. And then when you then challenge them, then your challenge, because you need to challenge people as well as support them as a leader, comes across in a less helpful way, in an unhealthy way, in a perhaps more obnoxious way or aggressive way. And it's about how the message is received as much as it is how the message is delivered, because that feeling of caring isn't evident to those people. If people know you care about them, and if you make them feel good, then that is really at the heart of leadership.
And that's been consistent, hasn't it, David, throughout what you've said there? This, people are not, my words, not yours, but people are not stupid. They know who's genuine and who's not, and that is such, I would say, a basic trait, but at the same time one that, certainly from my own experience, has fundamentally been overlooked. But food for thought. Let's pause it there, David. I want to kind of move on to another episode where we'll talk about wealth, but hold that thought for a moment. I want to invite you in at this stage, share your contact details, how people can find out more about you, reach out with you, etc., etc. What's the best way to get in touch with you, David?
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I appreciate that. So I'm on LinkedIn. So I'm David Roberts on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to contact me. I'm also on Facebook. I've got a Facebook page, but there's millions of David Robertses. But I'll also be able to give you my email address if you'd like to put that in the show notes if people want to contact me by email.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you, David. And on that leadership note, listeners, all that remains now is for me to sign off the way I always do. Leading from the front, I might add, by saying, remember, the world's changing. How will you respond?
Thanks very much for listening to this World Game Changers podcast episode. Hopefully you found it interesting and helpful. Drop a line to paul@worldgamechangers.org with any thoughts or questions you may have, and he'll be more than happy to respond. Remember, the world is changing. How will you respond?